What's up, my guy? We are in week 14 of it, and we live in Sam's Club. Merriam-Webster's word of the day is subterfuge or subterfuge. I ain't sure which way you pronounce it, but it's a formal word that refers to the use of tricks to hide, avoid, or get something. So do that information what you will. We always start with the working out. I had 3 spins and 1 walk because I couldn't walk because I don't know my weight vest at. I'm thinking it's in the garage. I need to organize that. So I'll get on that. We done been working around the house because I don't know why, but anytime it's time to like re-sign my lease, I had 1 violation last year with my grass or whatever, which I just got my grass cut before it got too high. So I don't know, just for whatever reason, I'm always in my head like they're not gonna let me resign. They're gonna say I done did too much. I ain't had, knock on wood, no police out here, no complaints that I know of. The closest thing, like I said, I had to a complaint this year or at all was the mold on the side of the house, and I needed a pressure washer. I pressure washed it, got it done. It was like, that's been clear, but I'm just always in my head. I think I'm always in either survivor mode or just worst case scenario. Although I love to, attempt to be optimistic, there's always something there that something's gonna go wrong. Worst case scenario or something bad versus just thinking, best case scenario. They gonna let me resign. I've been a good tenant. I pay my rent. We ain't had no issues. That's just how I think. I don't know, it's something that I have to work on, but they sent it. I re-signed it, so we're all good. We set for another year, which makes me ecstatic because, again, my big focus and concern was I wanted my bronze to be able to finish their last year of high school at the same school. Like, that's important, you know what I mean? So I have that, worked out. They're on spring break right now, eating up all my food, getting on my nerves. I can't wait for Monday. It's Saturday. I know Thursday's our record day, but it's Saturday. Thursday I was doing something. I had time to record. I can't remember what I was doing. I've been driving a lot. Like, I've been really on this little Uber thing or whatever because just a lot of bills. But so that's that. Like I said, we had 3 spins in 1 row. Gonna work on the garage. As far as the business goes, let me double check to make sure I don't cross contaminate. I know that was that Wednesday or Thursday? Today is Saturday. That was Wednesday. So yeah, I'm saying it was Wednesday, but I'm not exactly sure. Hold up, I'm going to my book now. It is April. That was the 4th. Okay, nope, I said that was that patio set. So, I didn't even see what days this week stretch to. It stretches from, oh no, that was this week then. So, it was from the 2nd to the 8th. So I had a patio set for the lady that I said my partner met, put me on my most return client. I'm always at her house putting some stuff together or doing something. So I did that. Of course, that went just fine or whatever. She was supposed to send me a dang on picture, but she didn't. But whatever. We're going to blame it on the head, not her heart. And okay, no, that was this week. Okay, so I think that was it for this week. Just that one job. And like I said, that went fine, no issues. Car's been driving fine. I got to get an oil change or whatever. Because I know last week 13, I was talking about when the alternator went out. So that's been fine. Working on getting the money saved because, like I said, he told me that a big cause of the alternator going out is the, what you call that thing? Oh, it's a little oil leak. He said he could fix it for a couple $100 or whatever. So working on getting that saved up. Like I said, spring break, kids on spring break. They was on spring break this time last year. My oldest anyway. I knew I wasn't tripping because this is the first time in ever that I recall that they're on the spring break at the same time. So if he was on spring break last year, I know that the older kids or the Charlotte kids weren't, or the kids where I live, my youngest and my bronze or whatever, they weren't on spring break, but they're all on spring break this week. So I'm thinking the school system here switched their calendar or whatever. So I'll go back and check, but I know normally he'll be sitting there looking like a lost puppy or asleep all day until they get home. And this time, like I say, they had to switch it here because he was on spring break this time last year and they wasn't. So whatever. But that's that with that. Oh man, I forgot. The last 2 weeks 12 and 13, I believe it was, or like might have both been in 13. Man, I got pulled over twice. Just driving late, getting sleepy, not paying attention, whatever the case is, and 2 state troopers on 2 different occasions pulled me, and they were like, looked like you were kind of weaving or whatever. What's going on? So, you know, hands out the window, or hands through the sunroof. I always open my sunroof if it's not raining. Have my license and registration in my hand, crack the window, and I, you know, answer the questions or whatever. So the first one, he was kind of annoyed by, you know, that or whatever, and I guess somewhat offended. I don't care about you being offended, dog. I'm making sure I'm safe. Like, getting pulled over, looking how I look is scary. So I don't play no games with it. If I got something in the car with me, I throw it in the back, turn all the lights on inside the cabin, hands through the sunroof, license and registration in my hands, window cracked enough for us to converse, because I don't need to reach it out. It's already out of the sunroof. Just grab it. So he was offended. Man, stop being weird. Why are you acting like that? I ain't being weird, and I ain't finna go back and forth with you. Here go my license and registration. How much have you had to drink? I haven't drunk all year. So if I check your license, it's gonna be fine? Yep. All right. And he got so pissed off, he didn't say wait. He didn't say you free to go. He just rolled off and then burnt rubber turning out. Okay, I don't care about that. So the second time, I noticed, like, I can tell the kind of cars that the like law enforcement drives. So I can tell by the yellow lights that's beside their headlights if it's that kind of car. So I'm like, I think this. And this the second time, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I think this them. So I'm riding or whatever, and I'm like, all right, you know, we're gonna ride, play it cool, we ain't gonna do nothing crazy. And so he pulled from behind me and pulled beside me, but he slowed down and opened his window. So I'm thinking he talking to me. So I'm like, did you say something? Then he blue light me, pull over. Okay. So I pull over. Why'd you pull over in the middle, or why'd you stop in the middle of the street? Because you pulled beside me and rolled your window down like you was saying something. What are we talking about? And so he was like, no, man, it looked like you was kind of weaving or whatever. You weren't maintaining your lane, and I was just checking to make sure you were straight. Well, when you pull beside me and roll your window down, you don't think that's gonna look like you're saying something? And he was like, no, you good? I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. He was like, your license straight? Yeah, everything good in the car? I said, I just stopped because I thought you was talking to me. He was like, yeah, no, man, you fine. All right, go ahead. But still, like, so that one was less awkward or whatever. We were on the main road and not a back road. Like, the first time it was a back road right by my house or whatever. And really no lights. And like I say, the guy came in, I wouldn't say attitude, but like I say, I can tell he was offended by the defensive and protective measures I took. Like, you don't have to do all that. You say that, but this has kept me safe when I've seen people do less and have less, you know, in their car, less going on, and they don't make it home. My job is to always make it home, just like your job. You want to make it home, right? So if these lights are on, my hands out the windows, you should come up here, chill, because I'm of no threat to you. You can see in the car, you see my hands, you see my paperwork. This is to make you feel safe so I can get home. So like I say, he was offended by that or whatever. The second guy wasn't offended at all. He was like, oh yeah, nah, man, you good. I was just, you know, making sure you were straight. I was like, yeah, I'm good. He was like, all right, have a good night, be safe, you know, stay in your lane. I'm like, all right. So that was, you know, a little, I forgot to mention that both for the last video or whatever. So again, just glad to make it home or whatever. Definitely make sure I'm maintaining my lane, because I ain't got time for no issues. I don't want no trouble or whatever. So that was that. Like I said, business going fine. What do we have? Any interesting lift rides? Yeah. No, I didn't talk about it because that just happened. So, of course, we're waiting to hear back about the fraud roll. Had my second interview for the company that laid me off. It went well. I stumbled on one question. I forgot, like, I work with the this department, but I was saying more specifically the accounts, which wasn't what they asked. So the person that was interviewing me kind of looked like, that's not the answer to that. And so then she explained, like, oh yeah, it's a law, whatever. I'm like, yeah, I work with those accounts or whatever. So I know what you're talking about. I just forgot the law. And so she was like, well, you know, if, emphasis on the if you're moved along in the interview process, her manager, the big boss, is gonna ask you about that. So you might want to Google that just in case you are, you know, moved along in the interview process. So of course I take everything with a grain of salt and don't trust nothing. So she didn't say I would be moved on in the interview process, but you know, that hinting at it or whatever, we'll see. So I believe they said that it wouldn't be until maybe like next week or the week after until I'm informed of if I moved along in the interview process. So fingers crossed, we'll see. Now I did all this studying because the recruiter told me that it was gonna be like Excel intense and make sure that some of the stuff that I'd used before that I didn't use all the time, like they were gonna ask about that. So that kind of gave me where I got a demerit or a negative mark for forgetting that law or whatever that she asked about. On the opposite end, she asked like, oh, what is this right here? I think it might have been like HLOOKUP or whatever. HLOOKUP or VLOOKUP, one of those Excel functions you can use or whatever to search or find information. And so I told her, she was like, oh, okay, I use the other one. If I said HLOOKUP, then she used VLOOKUP. If I said VLOOKUP, she used HLOOKUP. But more so, she uses XLOOKUP, which looks up exactly what you're looking for in that exact cell or whatever. So she was like, oh, yeah, okay, I know what that is. I just don't use it like that or whatever. But yeah, I know how to use it. I'm like, all right, cool. You know what I'm saying? So it made me look a little bit good. And then it was great that we did the interviews because with the company that I'm interviewing at again, like I said, I just finished the contract there in January. And I've been there on and off since 2021. So she was like looking at it, and if you're just looking at, that's something that I was just talking to a friend about. If you're just looking at my resume, it can look hectic, but looking at the resume and seeing the short stints, it doesn't tell the story. Like, I've said this a few times on here before. Now, the first financial service job I had, that was on me. I didn't pass the test, boom. So I explained that away. That's not crazy abnormal in this industry or whatever. These tests aren't the easiest in the world, so people fail them. So I didn't pass the test, that's why I lost that job. Okay, cool. The same company I'm interviewing at, I got my contract with them in 2021, 6-month contract. They extended it, but I had another company offer me a permanent role, so I took the permanent role. So that's why I was only there 6 months. Still, it was taking those same tests. Should have stayed where I was at. I didn't pass the test, so I was only there for a few months. Then I went back to the same company that I'm interviewing with again in 2022. I was there for 11 months. Contract, and the contract came to an end. It didn't bring me on, so I got another contract role with a different company, and I was there for 2 months. And then the company I'm interviewing with hired me full time. They came back around, so I was only at their company 2 months. So I was there for a year and a half. They laid me off. I got another contract. I actually look back at the role that I had last year, the first one at the Japanese insurance company I be talking about, and it was actually a 3-month contract. I don't know why when I got all the paperwork and signed, it said a 3-month contract, but in talking to the recruiter, she was like it was a 6-month contract. So when it ended in 3 months, that was actually the correct time or whatever. Like it didn't end early, it was a 3-month contract. So I don't know where that got lost in translation or whatever, how I got miscommunicated, but it was only supposed to be a 3-month contract. So that was fine. So I was like, 3-month contract, and then you guys brought me back for 6 months. So she was like, oh, okay, that make a lot more sense. I thought we kept hiring you permanent and you was like messing up or just leaving. I was like, no, I would have stayed. Only one of those stints, like I said, if I've been there 4 or 5 times, 21, 22, 23, and then, I've been there 4 times. I was like, only one of them was permanent. The other ones were short-term contracts or whatever. So she was like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes it look a lot better. And I'm like, and you can ask all of the managers that are still there. I know that they'll all vouch and tell you, that I do exceptional work. It's not a quality thing, because like I say, even with the last contract I worked on, the very first contract I worked, which it would have been 4 years ago last year in 2021, this is in 2025, I was in the office and I had came across the manager, and at the time when I first started, I had a low cut, I have longer hair now. So the manager for my first contract actually reached out to me one day, was like, yeah, man, I was wondering how you doing this, that, and the third, whatever. And I'm like, I only worked under this dude for 6 months. I never saw him because we were 100% remote. And we didn't have a bunch of one-on-ones or a super close relationship. It was like, here's your work, do your thing, whatever. I don't remember any vivid conversations with him, but he remembered me and was like, yeah, I was wondering how you were doing. I'm glad to see you back, whatever. I'm like, that goes to show I haven't seen this guy in 4 years and we weren't close. And he even remembers, like, I'm glad that you're back. I know that this is a contract. If there's anything I can do to help, when your contract is over, reach out, whatever. So things like that, you know what I mean? Like, my work speaks for itself. So she was like, all right, that's great. So like I say, fingers crossed, hopefully we do hear back in the next week or two with that. And of course, we were waiting on the 4-hour roll, and we did hear back, and it wasn't the news we wanted to hear. The recruiter reached out and was like, again, they said that it was 5 positions open. He did say something about, like, I don't work in HR, something about 3 positions on back order or backfield, back something. I know the word back was used or whatever. And so he was like, we'll see. They're gonna select 5. It's 7 of you out there interviewing. They're gonna select of the 5, and then there's 3 positions on back order, backfield, whatever that is, and we'll see. But of course, we hope to get you in on this one. So I'm like, sit and wait, and then I reach out, I'm like, hey, just checking to see if we got an update. He's like, yeah, they did, select the other 5. So you and somebody else wasn't selected. My little soul crushed, dang. But it was, I'm like, I don't ever take offense. I'm like, man, it's business. You know what I mean? These people don't know me personally, so it is what it is. So he did say that there will be another class, or they'll be bringing in more people in 2 more weeks, and he'll see if he could get me in with that one. I think he said it's like 35 roles that need to be filled, and 20 of them sit in the metropolitan, and I'm in. So, fingers crossed we could get in there if, we don't get in with the company that the other company I'm interviewing with. So, I mean, things are still looking up, I believe. Oh, yeah, that's what I was about to say. So, it's been a really good week as far as live and communicating. I've met a couple of people in the same industry and in different industries that have been like, hey, look into this. You may be able to pivot this way and use some of the skills or get some of the experience that you want. It may not be in financial services. I know, actually, I dropped off a lady that worked with Coca-Cola, and they don't have like, a bunch of like fraud specific stuff, but like just finance. She was like, yeah, like even her background, I forgot, it was something different. It may have been like communication, psychology, teaching. I think she was a teacher, and she pivoted. Now she's in HR and doing that with Coca-Cola. And she was like, yes, like you can pivot easily, and get into like the finance department. They don't like require accounting, finance, and whatever. And of course, it's Coca-Cola. Like this is one of the longest standing companies in the nation, or whatever. And so she was like, send me information. She's in HR. I love doing resumes, so I can look it over for you. I was like, great, I'll send it over. I'll go ahead and tell you. If you say it sucks, it won't bother me none, because honestly, I didn't do it. The same way you gonna restructure it and do your thing with it, somebody else did it with that one. So if it sucks by your standard, you could change it and send me that one, and I add that, to the list of resumes I use. I asked about cover letters, because I used to do those a lot or whatever, and she was like, I don't look at them, and all the recruiters I know and HR people I know, we don't look at them. Like, that's just extra work. So we just look at the resume. I'm like, okay. So I spoke with her, and this past weekend, there was an older brother that I picked up, him and his wife. They, looking suited and booted, and he looked very professional, very well kept, bald head, no face hair. And in a lot of cases, those men, I ain't gonna say they are, but I'm not surprised if they're military, former military, or law enforcement. Like, he just gave that look, even though his walking the way he carried himself. This man looked like he'd been in the military. Sure as the world's round, graduated from West Point, military background. So they're in, and the wife is like, we're just talking or whatever. And I'm listening to some finance stuff, and they're listening to it or whatever. And, we doing all right, whatever. So the wife starts asking me a few questions like, what do you do? Is this all you do? You do something else? And I'm like, I do this. I have a little small business that I do, handyman and assembling furniture and whatnot. And I'm actually waiting to hear back from, I said, the financial institution I'm waiting to hear back from. I interviewed with them, hoping to get into their fraud department, financial crimes, white collar crime, whatever you want to call it. Because fraud, AML, BSA, there are different, sectors or whatever. So I'll just say fraud as a blanket statement, but I should say white collar crimes, because that covers all of it. Fraud, AML, BSA, whatever. So when I say that, sometimes people are like, oh, okay, I don't do fraud, I do AML, BSA. And I'm like, well, I'm saying just getting into the field in general. I don't mean fraud specific. Well, I don't mean AML, BSA specific. White collar crimes as a whole. Wherever KYC, enhanced due diligence, I don't care where it is or what it's doing. I just want to get my foot in the door, and I'll figure out where I belong when I get there. So, like I said, we're kind of rapping a little bit. And she's like, she work in the medical field. And so the husband like, what do you do? He's like, I work for this financial institution. I was like, oh, I'm just joking. I'm like, oh, you VP, so you run the place or whatever. So we breezed past that or whatever. He ain't really react to it. And then after I give my spiel, I'm like, I'm waiting to hear back from this company, hoping to get in the white collar crime sector. The wife looks at the husband. He was like, funny enough, I'm actually in white collar crime. I work for this, like I said, I work for this institution, and I'm a VP over this AML department. And I was like, seriously? He's like, yeah. And so he was like, you seem like you got your head on straight, whatever. If you want, we can connect. I know that we had a project going or whatever, and they were looking for like analysts, and I could see, speak to the hiring manager and see if they're still looking, and if, I could put in a word for you. What? Of course. So he was like, give me your LinkedIn, or I'm gonna give you my LinkedIn. His wife was like, no, he driving, get his. So I give him my LinkedIn. He like, what the, hang on. I'm like, what's going on? He like, man, we already connected. I was like, yeah, I do, kind of reach out to people and try to connect with people in that industry. As you can see, like I say, I'm looking to break entry into this space. I've been doing it for a while and just haven't had the opportunity. I've been in financial services, worked in onboarding, compliance, operations. I've done a bunch of background stuff in different realms, but I want to use, and transition over into the white collar crime space. I have a criminal justice degree. I feel like that translates best to that space, and that's what I've been trying to get to. So he was like, yeah, we'll connect. Like I said, I'll reach out and I'll see if I can make anything happen for you. So like I said, whether he does or doesn't, man, just being able to make those connections and getting those morale boosts. Because like I said, I listen to a lot of, and I don't know if that's like good or bad, but I listen to a lot of like layoff content and people that's going, in the job market. The job market sucks. So it's like, I know what I'm listening to is negative or whatever, but it's the reality or whatever. Like, I can relate to it, unfortunately. Like right now I don't have a job, so I can't relate to somebody if I go and, listen to content where people, oh, I got my offer letter and I just got this job and I'm so excited. Not saying I still won't add it or whatever, just, to counteract and balance out the negativity that I'm taking in listening to layoff and I lost my job content. I may do that or whatever. So we'll see. But like just getting those interactions with people that, hey, if I can help you in any way, or, you can also look at XYZ, that's always a good feeling, man. So that's pretty much it for week 14. Oh, I forgot. It's funny enough, this time last year, I was hoping that I could come back, because this time last year, I had just filed an LLC for Leave It To Me Assembly. And I had, of course, I had got that warehouse job, like, I think the week before, but I was, like, really hoping, because it didn't work great with my schedule. Of course, it's nowhere near in the field of what I was trying to do. But again, I was grateful to get me from, doing as much driving as I was doing, wear and tear on my car, whatever. So I was grateful and I was going to take it. But week 14, I got an interview, quick turnaround, and that's when I got the Japanese insurance company job, working in operations with them. So, looking back, it's like that was this week. And it was also, again, I know the kids, my oldest was on spring break, because I had that weekend before, I had taken my youngest Brown with me to do a job. We did 2 jobs in one day, boy. We worked that day. And so he worked with me. And then when spring break, like I say, the kids were at school, he was the only one out. Again, I guess the local school switched their schedule because they weren't on spring break at the same time, but they are this year. So he was, I took my oldest with me. He did a job with me. And that was when we got home from doing that job, and my oldest and my youngest Brown were talking. They both were like, man, I can't wait. Hopefully we get older and, we able to go do these jobs and he don't even got to go with us. And they were like, man, that's what I want to hear. That is what I do this for. That is what I need to hear. Yes, y'all get to the point where y'all do it and I don't even got to go with you. I like the sound of that. So, I'm going to respond to this real quick. I just got a lead. And I need all of my money. Move out the way. Hurry up. Give me the man number. But yep, so like I said, that's week 14 in a nutshell, man. It's going good. I know I was speaking about checking in on my friend. We did get the wrap. She has some interviews coming. She doing okay. Of course, she ain't in the greatest of spirits because, things aren't going the greatest for her. But just to know that she's okay, it was good to catch up with her and hear her voice. My other friend, she was facing a layoff after like 10 years at her company. And they just let her know. They moved her to another team or whatever. So I just was rapping with her and she let me know that she's going to be able to stay. So life going pretty good, man. This week I got a bunch of like leads and clients reaching out for jobs. I didn't get them all, but I got one. I had another one scheduled. The young lady said that she couldn't afford, what I was quoting, which was fine. It didn't seem like she was trying to lowball me. She was like, I said if I could reach out to my parents. Had another one reach out that I didn't think I was going to get. They actually just reached out to me and we scheduled for next week. So I have that one. And man, we keeping busy. Because I thought I had the one with that young lady, I actually declined on one that I wish I had at least spoke to him, because she ended up, like I say, not being able to afford it. And so when she turned it down, I would have spoke to that person and maybe got that for yesterday and made that money. But I got one I'm finna call right now because they just messaged me and I don't have nothing scheduled for right now, so I can go do it today. So let me get back to them for somebody else does. It still say I'm the only person that responded. I love you, my boy, Maktub. Be kind to yourself. Remember, everything that we are working on is going to happen overnight, plural with an S. It's not gonna happen overnight. We ain't make the mistakes and mess everything up in the night. We ain't gonna fix it in the night. And in the famous words of Rio, you don't work, you don't eat, and if you don't grind, you don't shine. I love you, my boy, and I'll holler at you in week 15. All right.